What is up, everyone? It's Quinn here, and in today's video, I'm going to be going through my Week 13 top 18 quarterback rankings. If you guys have not seen my running back, wide receiver, defense rankings, make sure you guys check those out after this one. I'll also have the tight ends out today. If you guys enjoyed the video, smash that like button, subscribe. But let's just dive right into the quarterbacks here. Starting off in Tier 1, my QB1 this week is going to be Jalen Hurts going up against the Ravens. On the season, Jalen Hurts is the quarterback 2 in points per game. This is a nice matchup here against the Ravens defense that is allowing the 5th most points per game to the quarterback position. And then actually right behind him, also in Tier 1, I have Lamar Jackson going up against the Eagles. Lamar Jackson is pretty clearly the quarterback 1 in points per game, almost by like 3 full points. So I think both these quarterbacks are really strong plays. The odds that you have both of them on your team is, pretty much impossible. So Hurts, Lamar Jackson, obviously locked into your fantasy lineups. And then the last quarterback in here, I will say this is going to be assuming some health to his weapons. We have Josh Allen going up against the 49ers here. The Bills have the 5th highest implied point total on the season. Josh Allen has been very good. He's the quarterback 5 in points per game. And then like I kind of referenced, you're just hoping he can get some guys back. Dalton Kincaid with his knee injury, Amari Cooper, you want him to be fully healthy. Keon Coleman also. So if he can get all these dudes in the lineup and they can start building some camaraderie, some chemistry, I do think Josh Allen will continue to be a high-end quarterback 1 rest of season. If we're hearing that one or multiple of these guys are going to miss some time, then, potentially drop them down here into Tier 2. Now, starting off in Tier 2, I have Joe Burrow going up against the Steelers. This is not a great matchup here. The Steelers have actually allowed the fewest points per game to the quarterback position. I kind of just feel like Joe Burrow is playing at too high of a level to drop him much lower than this. He is currently the quarterback 3 in points per game and has put up 29 plus points in each of his last 3. So he has been on an absolute heater. If I'm picking between a great quarterback option going up against a great defense, in this situation, I'm siding with Joe Burrow here. I think he'll be fine. Vegas, has the Bengals at a very respectable, top 10 in implied points. So I'm betting on Burrow to produce here, even though he is going up against a tough Steelers defense. Then after Burrow, I have Justin Herbert going up against the Falcons. He has found some consistency here, 17 plus points in each of his last 5 games. The Falcons are allowing the 7th most points per game to the quarterback position. And I think something that's maybe flown under the radar a little bit with Justin Herbert is the rushing usage. In his last 3 games, he has rushed for 126 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. He obviously has the athleticism and the size to do it. He just, hadn't really had that tendency in his previous seasons. He's getting some production on the ground, and that can kind of make up for his receivers, Quentin Johnston, just completely crapping the bed every time he throws him a pass. You would like to see some consistency out of those wide receivers, but he's still getting it done for fantasy, and I like the matchup he has here against the Falcons. After Justin Herbert, going to go with Jaden Daniels going up against the Titans. He's actually coming off his best game of the season. It did not look like it was going to be a great fantasy day, but he ends up finishing with 30.4. Little sketchy that a lot of that came, I guess in what seemed like garbage time, ended up being a very competitive, close ending. But hey, the points count. You're going to take it in your starting lineup. And I still think he's a very strong start. Then I have Baker Mayfield going up against the Panthers. On the season, he is still the quarterback 4 in points per game. The Panthers are allowing the 6th most points per game to the quarterback position, and Vegas thinks the Bucs are going to put up points. They have the 3rd highest implied point total. Baker had a solid game with Mike Evans back. I do think getting his, wide receiver 1 back in the lineup is going to be big for him. Like him here as a mid-tier quarterback 1. Couple more guys in this tier. We have Patrick Mahomes going up against the Raiders. He's actually coming off his best fantasy game of the season in Week 12, 28.8. He's found some consistency, 15 plus points in each of his last 5 games, and the Chiefs have the 2nd highest implied point total. So I think Patrick Mahomes will be just fine. And then my last tier 2 quarterback, Bo Nix, has been on an absolute tear, 16 plus points in each of his last 5 games. In that 5-game stretch, he is averaging 22.4. I mean, really, he's making a case here for Offensive Rookie of the Year. Him and Sean Payton are clicking. Cortland Sutton has been balling out. So Bo Nix, I think he's definitely established himself as a very strong weekly start. Now, Tier 3, it's going to be a one-man tier here. It's Kyler Murray. I couldn't quite fit him in Tier 2, but I do think he's a step ahead of the guys that are in Tier 4. So on the season, he's the quarterback 9 in points per game, pretty close to my quarterback 10 ranking. In his last 5 games, he has had 3 games with, pretty solid ceilings, 20 plus points in 3 of those matchups, but he's also had 2 games under 11. So he's looking a little bit boom or bust as of late. Not the best matchup, not the worst matchup here against the Vikings. I think quarterback 10 is a very, very fair spot to have him settle in. Now we're going to be getting into a very, very large tier 4. We're going to start off with Jordan Love going up against the Dolphins. Now, in his healthy games, he's averaging 18.6 points per game. He has been a solid option. The problem is this is a really tough matchup against the Dolphins. They were allowing the second fewest points per game to the quarterback position, so that's what kind of limits him here a little bit in this matchup. After Jordan Love, going to go with CJ Stroud going up against the Jaguars. Didn't really do anything crazy in week 12, but it was still his best fantasy game since week 6. Nico Collins had a big game. That was good to see. This is just a really nice matchup here against the Jaguars. They are allowing the most points per game to the quarterback position. This could definitely be like a get-right spot for this Texans offense and for CJ Stroud. Then I have Jared Goff going up against the Bears. The Bears have actually been very tough against opposing quarterbacks, the 3rd fewest points per game allowed, but the Lions are still number 1 in their implied point total. Jared Goff is the quarterback 13 on the season. He is my quarterback 13 this week. Then I have Tua going up against the Packers. Tua in his last 2 games has been balling out, 605 total passing yards, 7 total touchdowns. It's not a great matchup here against the Packers. They are bottom 6 in points per game allowed, but I think you can ride the hot hand here. I like him as a high-end QB2. The tough thing about Tua, though, is that he pretty much gives you no floor with his legs, so he has to have a really strong passing day to produce, but he's been doing it over the last couple of weeks. You have Jalen Waddle, starting to get involved. Jonnu Smith has been a beast over the last couple, Achane, and then you still have Tyreek Hill within that offense, so I think he'll be just fine. Then I have Matthew Stafford going up against the Saints. Stafford has just been a very consistent option since he has gotten Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua back. 17 or more points per game in 4 of his last 5. And then my last tier 4 quarterback, someone who's honestly just putting together a very strong season, Sam Darnold going up against the Cardinals. He is currently the quarterback 11 in points per game. He has scored 18 or more points in 4 of his last 5 and had a pretty decent game against, like I mentioned, the pretty tough Bears defense for fantasy quarterbacks. And then the final tier here, tier 5, we're going to start off with Anthony Richardson going up against the Patriots. Not a matchup I'm super scared of. One thing I do like about Richardson is that in his last couple of games, he has been very involved on the ground, 10 carries in back-to-back weeks. Week 11, he had a really nice fantasy day. Week 12 was not great, but also a pretty tough matchup. I think he'll be fine as like a mid-tier quarterback 2 here against the Patriots. And then my final quarterback, Geno Smith going up against the Jets. Not a great matchup, but not as scary as it would have seemed heading into the season. Geno's just had like this weird season where his volume is great. Like he's number 2 in pass attempts. He just has not had the touchdowns. Number 2 in pass attempts, number 20 in passing touchdowns. It's not an ideal situation. He can rack up the volume, but we're going to need to see, some of that volume turn into touchdowns if he wants to be a reliable fantasy play. But that's going to wrap it up for my top 18 quarterbacks. If you guys enjoyed the video, hit that like button, subscribe. Any questions, feel free to drop them down below. Like I said, maybe at the top of the video, I'm not going to be updating my running back and wide receiver rankings, but I will still be answering comments later on in the week. So drop them if you have them. But thank you all for stopping by, and I'll see you in the next one.